Imagine the scene for a second. It's arguably the most famous Sunday morning in history, but nobody knows it yet. It's pitch black, early dawn. You have a group of women walking toward a cemetery, carrying spices. They aren't expecting a miracle. They're expecting to do the grim work of embalming a body. The mood is heavy, it's defeated. And then, the stone is gone.
It's the ultimate plot twist, isn't it? But what strikes me about the accounts in Luke and John isn't just the empty tomb. It's the sheer confusion. You'd think the moment they saw the stone rolled away, they'd shout, "He's back!" But they don't. They're terrified. They're perplexed. It's chaos.
Exactly. It's not a victory parade, it's a crime scene investigation. You have Mary Magdalene running to Peter and John, basically saying, someone stole the body. That's the only logical explanation her brain can process.
Right. And I love the detail about the foot race between Peter and the other disciple. There's this frantic energy. They run to the tomb and they find linen. Just fabric, and the face cloth folded up neatly in a separate place. That's such a specific, odd detail. Grave robbers don't fold the laundry before they leave.
That's a great point. It implies intention, not theft. But let's talk about the emotional whiplash here. You go from the trauma of the crucifixion to this empty void. And then we get one of the most cinematic scenes in the entire narrative, the road to Emmaus.
Oh, this is my favorite part of the post-resurrection stories. It's deeply psychological. You have two disciples walking 7 miles to a village, just trying to process the trauma. And Jesus shows up, walks right beside them, and they have absolutely no idea who he is.
Which is wild. They spent years with him. How do you not recognize your own teacher? Is it supernatural blinding, or were they just so convinced he was dead that their minds couldn't see the living reality?
I think it's a bit of both. But look at how Jesus handles them. He doesn't say, "Surprise, it's me." He plays dumb. He asks, "What are you talking about?" And Cleopas gives this heartbreaking answer. He says, "We were hoping that he was the one to redeem Israel." Past tense. Hope was in the past tense.
That hits hard. They are grieving the death of a dream, not just a man. And then Jesus, still incognito, basically gives them the greatest Bible study in history. He walks them through Moses and the prophets, explaining why the suffering was necessary. He recontextualizes their entire worldview before he reveals his face.
Precisely. He had to fix their understanding before he fixed their sight. If he had revealed himself immediately, they would have been happy, but they wouldn't have understood the mission. They needed to see that the cross wasn't a failure. It was part of the design. And then, the reveal happens in the most ordinary way possible, over dinner.
The breaking of the bread, it's such a domestic, intimate signal. And the moment they recognize him, poof, he's gone. And they say that famous line, "Did not our hearts burn within us?" It's like their intuition knew before their eyes did.
That burning heart sensation is the bridge between skepticism and faith. But then the scene shifts. They rush back to Jerusalem to tell the 11, and suddenly Jesus is there in the room with them. And this is where the narrative works hard to prove this isn't a ghost story.
Right? Because their first reaction is terror. They think it's a spirit, and Jesus is essentially saying, look, ghosts don't have flesh and bones. He challenges them to touch him. And then, I love this, he asks for a snack. Do you have anything to eat?
It's so grounding. He eats a piece of broiled fish right in front of them. It's the most mundane human act, eating dinner, used to prove a supernatural reality. He's saying, I am physically here. But not everyone was there for the fish dinner, were they?
Thomas. Poor Thomas. He always gets the bad reputation. Doubting Thomas. But honestly, I sympathize with him. Everyone else is shouting, "We saw the Lord," and he's the odd man out. He just wants the same evidence they got.
Exactly. He's not a cynic, he's a pragmatist. He says, unless I see the nail marks and put my hand in his side, I won't believe. He refuses to be swept up in mass hysteria. And a week later, Jesus comes back specifically for him. He doesn't scold Thomas for needing proof. He offers his hands. He meets Thomas exactly where he is.
And Thomas's reaction is immediate surrender. My Lord and my God. It's the highest confession of faith in the Gospels. But Jesus leaves us with a lingering thought there. Blessed are those who have not seen and yet have believed. That feels like a direct address to the audience. To us, centuries later.
It is. It shifts the blessing from eyewitness accounts to trust. But the story doesn't end in that upper room. We have this epilogue in John 21 that is just beautiful. The disciples go back to Galilee, and what do? They go fishing.
Which is tragic in a way. They've seen the risen Lord, but they don't know what to do with themselves, so they default to their old jobs. I'm going fishing, Peter says. It feels like a retreat to the familiar.
and they catch nothing. It's a complete failure. Until dawn breaks and there's a stranger on the shore telling them to cast the net on the other side. The abundance of fish, 153 of them, triggers the memory. John realizes it first. It's the Lord.
And Peter just jumps in the water. He can't wait for the boat to dock. But when they get to shore, Jesus is already cooking breakfast. Charcoal fire, fish, bread.
That charcoal fire is a crucial detail. The last time Peter stood near a charcoal fire, he was denying Jesus 3 times in the courtyard of the high priest. The smell of that smoke must have triggered so much shame for Peter. He's probably thinking, I'm disqualified. I failed when it mattered most.
But Jesus doesn't bring up the failure. He doesn't ask, why did you run away? He asks one question 3 times. Simon, do you love me?
It's a painful but necessary surgery. 3 denials, 3 affirmations. Yes, Lord, you know I love you. And for every I love you, Jesus gives him a job. Feed my lambs, tend my sheep. He's not just forgiving Peter, he's reinstating him. He's saying, your failure didn't cancel your purpose.
That is such a powerful model of leadership and restoration. It's not about groveling, it's about getting back to work. But then the conversation takes a somber turn. Jesus predicts Peter's death. He tells him, when you are old, you will stretch out your hands and someone else will dress you.
It's a heavy reality check. Following Jesus isn't just about miraculous catches of fish and breakfast on the beach. It's about sacrifice. Jesus is honest with him. This is going to cost you your life. And immediately, Peter looks at John and asks, well, what about him?
Which is so human. Okay, I have to die, but what about the teacher's pet over there? And Jesus' response is iconic. If I want him to remain until I come, what is that to you? You follow me.
It's the ultimate stay in your lane moment. Comparison is the thief of joy and of focus. Jesus is telling Peter that his journey is his own. You can't measure your calling by someone else's timeline.
So looking at this whole arc, from the panic at the empty tomb, to the burning hearts on the road, to the skepticism of Thomas, and finally the restoration of Peter, what is the big takeaway here? Because it seems like the resurrection wasn't just a happy ending, it was the beginning of a very difficult, very real new chapter.
I think the core message is that belief is a process, not a switch. You see it in every character. Mary needed to hear her name. The Emmaus disciples needed the scriptures opened. Thomas needed to touch the wounds. Peter needed to be restored from his shame. The resurrection meets people in their specific brokenness.
That's a beautiful way to put it. It's not a one-size-fits-all revelation. And it ends with the ascension. Jesus blessing them and leaving. But this time, unlike at the tomb, they aren't sad. Luke says they returned to Jerusalem with great joy.
Right. Because they finally understood. He wasn't gone. He was just everywhere now. They weren't following a man anymore. They were carrying a message. They went from being confused disciples to being witnesses. And that transition, from confusion to clarity, from fear to boldness, is really the story of the early church.
And it all started with an empty tomb and a piece of broiled fish. It's a reminder that the divine often shows up in the middle of our confusion, our doubts, and our daily work.
Absolutely. The question isn't whether the evidence is there. The question is, like the disciples on the road to Emmaus, are our eyes open enough to recognize it?
A profound question to leave us with. We've traveled from the dark morning to the bright shores of Galilee. It's a story that never really gets old. Thanks for walking through it with me.
My pleasure. It's a story worth retelling. If you have been blessed by this, please like, subscribe, and share this joy with others. God bless.